This film is dedicated to a great friend of the Soviet people. He frequently came to the Soviet Union, the President of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, Chairman of the Central Committee of the Working People's Party of Vietnam. He enjoyed the sincere and heartfelt affection of one and all in the Soviet Union. His name was Ho Chí Minh. In Vietnam, he was called Bác Ho, Uncle Ho, or Old Man Ho. Ho Chí Minh in Vietnamese means wise with experience. This was his last 19th party name. I was born 10 years before the beginning of our century. My father, a village school teacher, named me Nguyen Tat Thanh. I grew up in colonial Indochina, in the province of Nghe An, which gave my country many soldiers and poets. That dashing, surging wave, will it bring back past memories? He saw this in his native village. He saw this in the town of Hue, where he studied. Today, it is South Vietnam. The French came to Indochina in the 19th century. First the missionaries, then merchants, soldiers, gendarmes, and planters. Young Nguyen Tat Thanh learned by heart the Declaration of the Right of Man and Citizen proclaimed by the French Revolution. People are born free and remain free and equal in their rights. Free and equal. The French flag in Vietnam was the flag of the oppressors. Nguyen Tat Thanh dreamt of discovering a happy land where there would be no oppressed. In 1910, he went to France, to Paris. The Paris of the poor received me, he used to say. There I learned the true solidarity of the poor and the benighted. This is the window of his room in the small by-street called Compuan, where he worked as a photographer. He traveled a lot in those years. He was a cabin boy. He washed dishes in a London hotel and then was a baker. He was a cigarette vendor in Canton and a window cleaner in Rio de Janeiro. He nearly died from tropical fever in Africa. He published his first story in L'Humanité and became a foreign correspondent of Paris periodicals. In the United States, he wrote, politicians, financiers, and the authorities always encourage, spur on, and incite criminals and racialists, and then cover them up. But he never did find a happy land. My land, 100 leagues divide us. I lie so still, engulfed in heavy slumber. Weeks passed, then months. I wrote these lines in tears. Nguyen Tat Thanh returned to France. In 1917, he was 27. In 1919, the young Vietnamese man came to Versailles and spoke to the prime ministers and generals who were remaking the map of Europe. He demanded, not asked for, but demanded independence for his country, for all colonies. In Paris, in Rue Jacques Callot, he rented premises for the newspaper Paria, meaning the oppressed. He was its publisher, editor, typesetter, proofreader, and delivery man. These are his articles. He signed them Nguyen Ai Quoc. Advertisement. Have your photographs taken by our comrade Nguyen Ai Quoc. Unframed 20 centimes, framed 40 centimes. But he needed more money than he earned. Thereupon the young Vietnamese signed a contract with a Paris theater to write comedies. He spent every centime he got paid to publish the Paria. You're making a mistake, he told colonial officials in France, if you think that the people of Indochina have reconciled with their lot and do not hope to achieve emancipation the revolutionary way. For my illiterate compatriots, he used to say, my weapon is not the pen, but an artist's brush. These are his drawings, anti-colonial cartoons signed Nguyen Ai Quoc. 30 years later in Hanoi, he would tell Soviet journalists, I'm your colleague. I wrote, took pictures, and made drawings for a newspaper. He never did relinquish the habit of drinking the blackest coffee and smoking cigarettes, acquired in those days in order to stay awake at night. 1920, Nguyen Ai Quoc speaking at a congress of the French Socialist Party. A group of French socialists recognized Lenin's Third International and formed the Communist Party of France. Nguyen Ai Quoc became a communist. A year later, Marcel Cachin put forward his candidature for a seat in the French Parliament. The Paria printed more and more materials about Soviet Russia. Then came January 1924. From Paris he went to Moscow to pay his last respects to Lenin. The Pravda published his article. Lenin has died. Like a bolt from the blue, these tidings will sweep over the fertile plains of Africa and the green expanses of Asia. Yes, people with black or yellow skins may not know exactly who Lenin was or where Russia lies, but all of them, whether a peasant in the fields of Annam or a hunter in the forests of Dahomey, have heard the whispered words that there, on the other end of the globe, lives a nation which has chased out the masters. They have also heard that this land is called Russia, that it is guided by intrepid people, and that the most intrepid of them is called Lenin. Such was Moscow when Gwen I. Kwok arrived there in the 20s. Here in Bolshoi Theater, the Comintern held its congresses. Pushkin Square was the site of the Communist University of the Working People of the East, where he studied. He lived in Hotel Lux in Tverskaya, now Gorky Street, and frequently went to Red Square and the Kremlin. Gwen I. Kwok heard the Soviet President Mikhail Kalinin address the 5th Congress of the Comintern. One of the tasks put forward by the 5th Congress of the Comintern in 1924 was that of organizing Marxist-Leninist parties in colonies and dependencies. The future President of Democratic Vietnam with a group of Congress delegates. Comrades, since we call ourselves Lenin's disciples, we must concentrate all our strength, all our energy, on translating into life the precious behests bequeathed to us by Lenin in solving both the colonial and other issues. The Comintern delegated him to assist the Vietnamese revolutionary movement. It was for these underground publications that the colonial authorities sentenced him to death. And Gwen I. Kwok united various communist groups and in the beginning of 1930 formed the Communist Party of Indochina. He attended the 7th Congress of the Comintern as a delegate from the Communist Party of Indochina. A questionnaire for the delegates to the 7th Congress of the Comintern. Name under which you are working in the party. Tend Man Kyon. Name under which you will speak at the Congress. Lin. Occupation. Sailor. Worked for hire for 10 years. Present source of livelihood. Student of the Moscow Lenin School. From what year and in which communist parties were you a member? From 1920, member of the Communist Party of France, and from 1930, member of the Communist Party of Indochina. Work performed since the 6th Congress of the Comintern. Organizer of the Communist Party of Indochina, 1930-1931. Were you subjected to repressions? Arrested in 1931, spent 2 years in prison and escaped in 1933. What languages do you know? French, English, Indo-Chinese, Cantonese, Italian, German, Russian. At first, it was patriotic sentiments, rather than communist ideas, that brought me to Lenin. But step by step, continuing the struggle, I came to realize that only socialism and communism can emancipate the peoples. He, leader of the Anti-Colonial League, was called Gwen I. Kwok. He signed his articles in the underground communist press with the name Lin. In police records, he was known as Tong Wan So. In 1941, he returned to his native land and became a soldier. Henceforth, his name was Ho Chi Minh. These party documents, the rules and the program of the Communist Party of Indochina, Comrade Ho Chi Minh carried in his map case. In 1941, he declared that the Soviet Union will definitely win the war, and that this victory will lead to the rise of other socialist states. This was how the first Vietnamese partisan detachments which fought against the Japanese invaders were raised. In 1945, he became the first president of Free Vietnam, In the jungle, writing by the light of a wick lamp, Ho Chi Minh formulated the Declaration of Independence. But a few weeks later, French colonial troops landed in South Vietnam. President Ho Chi Minh and the government of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam did their utmost to preserve the newly won freedom and avert bloodshed. President Ho Chi Minh came to Paris for talks. Citizens of France, I should like to address you with a few words, not as President of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, but simply as a sincere friend of all honest Frenchmen. We are not fighting against honest Frenchmen. We are only coming out against the brutal rule of the French colonialists in Indochina. Vietnam needed peace to begin rehabilitation, but the French colonialists wanted to seize the whole country. The man on the president's left is General Leclerc. In response to the urge of the Vietnamese people for peace, they were prepared to start a war. In the autumn of 1946, the French troops began to shell Hanoi. There on the cruiser, General Leclerc smiled at the president. Now he ordered his troops to begin the offensive. But Ho Chi Minh told his people that there was another France. The France of Maurice Thorez, the France of Frédéric Joliot-Curie, the France of workers and dockers. Ho Chi Minh lived in their country. He was a member of their Communist Party, and now they refused to load tanks bound for his country. The jungle became his home. And a cave his presidential palace. He who has a rifle, let him arm himself with a rifle. He who has a sword, let him arm himself with a sword. If there are no swords, arm yourselves with hoes, spades, or sticks. The hour of saving the fatherland has struck. They say that psychological warfare specialists are showing this documentary, Ho Chi Minh in the Jungle, to U.S. officers and men. They're searching for the roots of what they call fanaticism of the Vietnamese, that which was actually a passionate effort of the whole people. Since its second Congress in 1951, the Working People's Party of Vietnam has been guiding the people's struggle. Once, the director of a lycée in Hue wrote in his character reference, "Better suited for scientific pursuits than other boys of his age." But Ho Chi Minh became a soldier. He often repeated Lenin's words that no revolution is worth anything unless it can defend itself. By 1954, Ho Chi Minh's detachments had turned into a powerful regular army. That year, the Vietnamese town of Dien Bien Phu was on everyone's lips. It was the site of a French military build-up in preparation for a decisive offensive. Silence surrounded them, but it was shattered by the guns of two divisions of the Vietnamese People's Army. Dien Bien Phu became a symbol of France's disgrace and tragedy. A tragedy of the deceived. 90,000 prisoners, those who only recently were on parade in Paris. In just the same way, U.S. airmen are now being convoyed on Vietnamese soil. The invaders pulled out of North Vietnam. Are these documentary films shown to U.S. officers and men? As the troops withdrew from the country, so did the owners of plantations, factories, and mills. People got Ho Chi Minh's portraits from secret hiding places. The President of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, returned to the capital with his troops. "9 years in the jungle, 9 years of war." And in Vietnam, as was the case after the Civil War in Russia, the words peace and land stood next to the word socialism. The people of Vietnam began building a new life. Once a poet compared Ho Chi Minh with Don Quixote. Yes, he was a visionary, a knight who battled against evil, and he became a soldier. He was a humanist and raised his sword against the invaders. His dream came true. He traveled across his country, not along secret guerrilla trails, but across the free land of Vietnam. The first gain of socialism was a simple one, but it concerned life itself. It was necessary to feed the children, and the president was the first to give up a third of his rice ration, setting an example for the entire adult population. You will of course be pleased to hear about the successes of the Soviet peasants. And if we do not spare our strength in the struggle, then what the Soviet Union has already achieved, we shall achieve tomorrow. Now we are restoring old, small dams, but I, Ho Chi Minh, assure you that we shall erect powerful hydroelectric stations. Yes, we shall do that. Citizens of Vietnam, first and foremost, you must learn to read and write. Only then will all our compatriots be able to take part in building up the state. If a wife is illiterate, her husband teaches her. If a younger brother is illiterate, his elder brother teaches him. If the parents are illiterate, their children teach them. Women must learn to read and write so as not to lag behind the men. Within a year, all the Vietnamese must learn to read and write. Young Vietnamese went to the USSR to study and become doctors, teachers, engineers, and commanders. Here is the first group of them on board a Soviet ship. President Ho Chí Minh, as would an old Muscovite, told him at parting, "Don't trifle with Russian frosts. Dress warmly. Return home as specialists, whom the country needs so much." The sailors of the first Soviet ships to arrive in Vietnam and anchor in the port of Haiphong played host to the president. For us, his name became the personification of free Vietnam. In 1955, Moscow welcomed President Ho Chí Minh. The national anthem of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam resounded in his honor. Ho Chí Minh had no need for pseudonyms now, nor did he have to avoid cameramen and photographers. He was president of a free country, and was happy to visit Moscow, where he lived in the 20s as a fugitive from the colonial authorities who wanted him for working for his country's liberation. In the 50s and 60s, President Ho Chí Minh made several trips to the Soviet Union. He arrived on official and on friendly visits to attend CPSU congresses and take part in international meetings. We must bear in mind that it is our good fortune to be living in a great epoch, the epoch of radical changes and momentous discoveries. In just a few decades, we have learned of many discoveries, such as the radio, television, atomic energy, and so forth. Man has placed the elements at the service of society. But the greatest discovery of all, a discovery of world historic importance, was the creation of the Marxist-Leninist theory. Lenin's name and his theory are inseparably linked with the achievements of the camp of peace and democracy, which extends from the Elbe to the Pacific and from the Arctic Circle to the tropics. The communists of the world called Ho Chí Minh a great patriot and internationalist. He addressed the following words to a party congress: "We shall always march shoulder to shoulder with the Soviet Union and other socialist countries in the struggle for the cause of peace, democracy, national independence, and socialism throughout the world." Whenever in Moscow, he always went to the Lenin Mausoleum. He first heard about Lenin in Switzerland, a year before the October Revolution. It was his dream to meet Lenin. He came to Moscow in 1923, when Lenin was already seriously ill. He came again in 1924, but only in time for Lenin's funeral. For us, Lenin has always been and will be a father, a friend, and advisor. Lenin wins the hearts of the Asian people, not only by his genius, but by his contempt of luxury, by his love for work, by his pure and simple personal life. In a word, by the moral nobility of a teacher. All his life, to his dying day, Ho Chi Minh considered himself a student of the Moscow Leninist school. Not a living god, but a president, a communist of the Leninist school. Ho Chi Minh did not live in this palace that used to belong to the Governor General in Hanoi, but in this small house once occupied by the gatekeeper. He would rise at 5:30 and work late after midnight. "I've no time to write verses now," he once said. Our verses today are dams in terms of kilowatts. The dry statistic reports showing the number of acres irrigated. Our verses are newly built factories and schools. The Third Congress of the Working People's Party of Vietnam, held in 1960, was named the Congress of the Victorious Builders of Socialism. This steel, these dams and schools, the achievements of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, the rising popularity of Ho Chi Minh and the Party of the Vietnamese Communists, were an example for the south of Vietnam, and the people there rose up in arms to struggle for their freedom. A hand has 5 fingers, some of them longer, others shorter, but they're all fingers of one hand, a single family. Dear compatriots in South Vietnam, I call upon you to unite. If all of us act in unison, a great future will await us. Our compatriots in South Vietnam are part of the Vietnamese nation. Rivers may dry up and mountains fall, but this truth will remain immutable. Every Vietnamese is my brother, my son, my grandson. I cannot sleep tranquilly when I think of the difficult life and the struggle of my compatriots in the South. He had no family or children of his own. He was the son and leader of the Vietnamese nation, 19 million in the north and 14 million in the south. He looked upon children as the future of the country. In 1931, he was tried in the British colony of Hong Kong. In 1942, fulfilling a party assignment, he visited areas bordering on China, where he was seized and thrown into prison by Chiang Kai-shek's agents. For 4 months, I am in prison. They're like 10 years of darkness. These 4 months have brought me 10 years closer to the last winter of my days. was believed to be dead 3 times during his lifetime. But as many times before, he was in hiding. He changed his name and became a monk in a Buddhist monastery in Siam to be closer to his country. In 1965, he turned 75. He was surrounded by children on that day. Still another war in the life of the Vietnamese people. Another war in the life of Ho Chí Minh. Sustaining defeats in the south of Vietnam and fearing the example set by the socialist North, the United States started an undeclared war against the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. Dear compatriots, I know that this war will be a difficult one. I know our enemy. He is strong, experienced, and treacherous. None of us, neither the soldiers, the workers in the rear, nor our women, shall have an easy time. It might happen that we shall have no strength to smile or sing, but we must have the strength to resist and to win. None of us is immortal, but we shall fight against aggression for national salvation. This war was the most difficult trial. There was no front or rear in the undeclared war. Factories were the front line and the workers were the fighters. Justice is on our side, the President said. Our will is firm, and we are filled with determination to fight and win. First year of the war, the most difficult period for the Republic, a Soviet delegation headed by Alexei Kosygin visited the frontline capital, Hanoi. The negotiations held in Hanoi and the documents signed there were fresh proof that the Soviet Union and the Communist Party consistently pursued the Leninist course of proletarian internationalism. And today, too, Ho Chí Minh's behest is to strengthen the solidarity and fraternal cooperation between the Soviet and Vietnamese people and parties. From the Presidential Secretary's Memorandum Book, Rising Time 5 o'clock, Report of the Air Defense Commander 6 o'clock, Meeting of the Politburo, Talk with the Young Pioneers, and another note, correct the proofs of the preface to Lenin's works in Vietnamese translation. At times it seems that no one wants to believe us, but we shall overcome difficulties. It must be done. It can be done, and it will be done.
Nhanh chóng vào hầm và phục vụ chiến đấu, hãy dũng cảm và kiên quyết làm tròn nhiệm vụ. Tất cả mọi người hãy chấp hành nghiêm chỉnh điều lệ phòng không nhân dân thành phố, góp phần đánh thắng giặc Mỹ xâm lược.
We were with Vietnam in those days. All progressive mankind was with the heroic country. Speaking on behalf of the 240 million citizens of the Soviet Union and its Communist Party, Leonid Brezhnev said at the time, "The Soviet Union has always fulfilled and fulfills its internationalist duty to the Vietnamese people. We have furnished and are furnishing substantial assistance. We have already delivered considerable quantities of arms and ammunition to the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. Our line is to continue rendering the Democratic Republic of Vietnam such assistance, both material and political, as it will require to counter U.S. aggression. We are consistently coming out for united efforts on the part of all fraternal socialist countries in assisting the Vietnamese people fighting against imperialist aggression." We have a large and powerful party, large and powerful because it is armed with the Marxist-Leninist theory, because it enjoys the love, trust, and support of the entire army and the entire people. Unity, unity, great unity, and we shall score victories, magnificent victories. Four years of bitter struggle. The United States unconditionally suspended air raids and was forced to open negotiations in Paris. Whatever the difficulties and privations, our people will definitely score complete victory. American imperialists will definitely be forced to withdraw from our country. Our fatherland will definitely be united. Compatriots in the South and North will definitely live under one roof. May our mountains, rivers, and people remain. After our victory over U.S. aggression, we shall build up our country and make it 10 times more beautiful than it is today. Again, the moon looks through the window to urge me write my verse. I have no time today, my moon. I shall not even sleep. Wait and be patient. Another day will come, my moon. There, listen how the bell is tolling to wake the people from their slumber. It brings them tidings of our victory. So wait a while. Be patient. Wait. In his testament to the people and the party, Ho Chi Minh wrote, "Being an old man, I should like to talk with you. There is a saying, old age is a heavy burden. I, however, think otherwise. In the past, and today too, a true patriot, even if he is an old man, cannot sit with folded hands. We old men must unite first, so as to set an example to our young people. If I was to go now, I would have no remorse. I only regret that I cannot serve any longer and better." But he shall always remain with us, a great patriot and internationalist, leader of the heroic Vietnam, a true friend of the Soviet people, a communist of the Leninist school, soldier and poet, comrade Ho Chi Minh. This film included documentary shots made by Soviet and Vietnamese cameramen, and also the material of the Institute of Marxism-Leninism under the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the State Film Fund of the USSR, and the Central State Archive of Film Documents of the USSR, and foreign newsreels. Script Igor Itskov, direction Ekaterina Vermisheva, music Edison Denisov. Camera, Anna Popova. Central Documentary Film Studios, Moscow.